Millage rates are the way you translate value into tax dollars, basically, for each taxing jurisdiction's budget. So most school districts have a millage rate somewhere around 90 to 100 total mills. Mills are 1/1000th of every net assessed dollar. So every county has an assessed rate that they have to apply to your total property value. So if you have a $500,000 home and they have to apply an assessment rate to it to get it to an assessed value. Every county has a different one, but it has to fall within statutory limits of 11 to 13.5%. When you get that assessed value, then you start talking about levying school district. This is where you get different tax bills on the same amount of value, if that makes sense.
No.
So a $500,000 house in Alva and a $500,000 house where I live is not going to have the same tax bill because of those different millage rates. The biggest fluid factor each year that changes your millage rate is your school bond sinking fund.
Okay, because that's what I was going to ask. So it's not the county that sets that. It's literally the schools. It's the people, right? Because if the people vote for the bonds.
So the schools, like I said, they get 70%. So they send a budget every year to the county clerk and the Excise Board approves it. And so does all the taxing jurisdictions. They're just very small compared to schools. But anyone that receives a property tax dollar has to submit a budget each year, an estimate of needs. The mills are calculated to get that budget for them each year.
So, I mean, it just sounds like once they get that percentage up to a certain number, they just want to maintain that at all costs.
Right.
There's more money coming into the school.
Well, it's twofold. So every year, I mean, right now, property values do not stop. I am growing astronomically in population in my county and house building. The growth alone is giving them a huge value increase annually. The sinking fund was called the sinking fund for a reason, right? It was supposed to sink annually as you paid off your bonds and your values would increase. That should wash any need to keep your tax rate high. A sinking fund is specifically a fund to pay the bond.
So a sinking fund is where you put the tax dollars that come in from the property taxes into the sinking fund to pay the bond.
Yes. And whatever you apportion in millage in that sinking fund has to go to the bond. I started noticing, hey, you're getting more money every year. Why is your sinking fund for the bond not going down? Like our taxes should be adjusting with the amount of growth you're getting. So I researched and I'm realizing bond makers, I don't know if they're just starting to smell blood in the water and figuring it out that it's easier to just keep a tax rate high as possible. One, you pay off bonds faster, but they don't really care about that part of it. They do it just so they can get another bond on the books before you notice your taxes going down. And then the other part of that coin, Title 70, it also addresses the problem that schools deal with, overcrowded classrooms. In Title 70, I've always wondered, how can classes continue to, if the statute limit is 22, how can they have 35 in a class every year and get away with it? So it allows for schools to not be penalized for failure to meet their class size limitations if the district has voted indebtedness through the issuance of bonds. And if when filing the school district budget with your state auditor, the district is voting for a maximum millage allowable. Basically, we are writing them blank checks to tax us to death so they can keep our kids' class sizes overcrowded and they get to do whatever they want with these bonds. Because there's no legislation on my schools every year try to pass bonds. They say they're going to be for safe rooms or classrooms, and it's for a football field. They can say whatever they want, and there's no recourse.
Yeah, I learned that in the school board run. Yeah, that's why those classroom sizes stay so big, because they keep running these bonds.